Hi, I'm Mike A. Pratt, and welcome. Thank you for joining us to this Geek Therapeutics for Cohort 21. Today we'll be going through The Fall of Magic by Ross Kalman. In the land, magic is dying, and along with it, the Magus, who is also dying. And brave, not even adventurers, but a variety of individuals have been gathered together on a quest to escort the Magus to the land of Umbra, where magic was born. Right now, I'm going to go ahead and ask each to introduce themselves and introduce their character with their title and where they're from. Sarah? Sarah?
You're muted.
Darn it. I am Sarah, and I'm playing Harp, the heir to Stormguard.
Nessa?
I'm Vanessa. I'm playing Justice, apprentice of Ravenhall.
Britton?
I am playing Piccolo, Raven of Ravenhall.
Mike?
I'm playing Vago, Giant of Mist.
Mel?
I am playing Fawn, midwife of Barleytown.
And Bill?
I'm Cabo, Scholar of Astalia.
And I will be playing as the Magus. Most of you have never met the Magus before. The Magus is of indeterminate gender, very old with a bald head, and what few hairs on the eyebrows are white. The Magus is dressed in a complete white robe that is made from very fine cloth that is said to be woven with magic, and walks on a long staff, though the staff is merely just a walking stick. We begin our tale in Ravenhall, and Sarah, I would like you to pick a story prompt and begin our tale.
So this is where I now if I'm remembering this, I pick one of the things. Okay, so I am struggling with remembering the last time that I really saw real magic.
Okay.
I would really like to see that again.
So describe the menagerie from your character's perspective. What does it look like? What does it sound like? How does it smell? What do you see there? Who's there? And then as you go through, describe how it talks about whether or not this reminds you of the last time you saw real magic, or if this is the last time you see real magic.
I see the menagerie as kind of mundane. Used to be absolutely glorious, and now it's a little run down. It doesn't seem to have the glamour that it once did. For lack of a better term, there was the magic is missing.
And how does this remind Harp of the last time they saw real magic?
I remember years ago when the tapestries almost sparkled and people would flock here from everywhere, and there was magic at every corner. There were mages and wizards and potions and creatures that we just don't see anymore. And so it's sad to see the state that things are in, especially compared to what it used to be.
All right, Nessa, pick one of the other story prompts at this location.
Okay. So Justice is walking along the bridge and stopped to look over and saw her face in the river. And she started to silently cry because as she sees the age increasing on her face, she's not sure what her purpose is anymore. And she thinks about the magus and and then she remembers the time where she first came to Raven Hall and remembered the amount of magic and joy that filled the town. And as time goes by, she feels it decrease every day.
The Magus has gathered the six of you, and you set out with supplies, heading to the east where the land of Umbra lives. As you proceed down the road to the Oak Hills, the Magus mentions that they did not know who they were picking. That you were chosen for a reason, but the Magus doesn't tell you what that reason is. Some of you may not even be what you would consider to be adventurers, might just be ordinary people, just come on the Magus's summons. The road heads off into the Oak Hills, and is the ending of summer. Britton, you want to tell us something from one of the Oak Hill prompts?
While Piccolo is known for being able to hide in the shadows, where she got the title Raven, she really enjoys the sunrise, and she likes to watch it every morning with a hot cup of the equivalent of coffee.
It could even be coffee.
Oh, coffee. And watch the sunrise on the quiet morning.
Is there anything about this morning in particular, or is this just your morning?
This is just a morning ritual. It's a little different. Haven't been to the Oak Hills in quite some time. And with the important task of escorting the Magus, it seems a little more important than everything else, than the other ones.
Okay. Mike, what do the Oak Hills mean to Vago?
Vago, as we're traveling on these Oak Hills here, he remembers Harper's Road, and he thinks back to someone he left behind, a trusted animal companion, a tiny squirrel named Tiny. And as Vago is roughly 7 foot tall, helping him with the name of Giant of Mistwood, he misses his little friend and knows that he probably shouldn't have come on this adventure, and he'll be fine at home. It'll just be it'll be hard without him, but Tiny will be fine.
As you proceed through the Oak Hills, the path opens up towards Barley Town, where the Barley Lord is expected to help you on your way, and maybe provide with additional provisions. Mel, what does Fawn find in Barley Town?
Well, since Fawn lived there for her whole life, she has many happy memories there, but one in particular was growing up with her mother, and her mother was a well-known midwife who taught her everything she knows. So she's gotten to know the people of Barleytown very well. But it's just a lot of happy memories here.
And Bill, what does Kabu find at Barleytown?
As Kabu is walking down the streets, he remember reading in his scrolls the time of a past battle on Swine Hill. It was fought long ago. and recollects of the time where the Magus, in his prime, assisted this battle that overran the enemy and allowed Barleytown to become prosperous and thriving.
What does Swine Hill look like today?
Swine Hill is lush and green, but yet there's moments at time at a certain point of the day where you can see the scars of the land. And once in a while, if the wind blows right through the trees, you can hear the loud crashes of men in battle.
And since there's an extra prompt here, Sarah, what does Harp find in Barleytown?
Harp, with her name, is obviously drawn to the Inn of the Axe and the Fiddle, where she listens to, songs of past adventurers and, the promise of new adventures and, the kind of rebirth of everything that had been lost.
Can you sing a few bars? Okay, that's fine. Resupplied and pressing on, the road comes to a fork, and there are two ways which this group can advance, and I'm encouraging everybody to discuss amongst themselves. One road passes through the Mistwood, which is the home of the Grey Rangers. The other road goes through the Storm Queen's Pass in the Stormguard Mountain, which is the domain of the Storm Queen. Both will get you to where you're going, but which route do you take?
If we take the path of to the Mistwood, I can stop in on Tiny and see how he's doing. Chat with the Grey Rangers a bit.
I also agree with Mistwood, because we do have Vago.
I wonder how Harp is with her mother, the queen.
I think kind of confronting a situation and going straight for the Storm Queen. That's my vote, but I'm okay with, what the majority wants.
I think that's a much more interesting path. I would take that path.
Do we have a consensus on which way the group was going? I heard both answers.
Stormguard Mountains.
Do I hear a
Let's
few?
go see Harp's mom.
Okay. So you proceed on towards the mountains. Now, Justice, you're traveling along the path in the Stormguard Mountains, in the teeth of a coming storm. Also, there's a new mechanic I hadn't mentioned. If you choose the scouting ahead, you see how there's some numbered options on there? Mm-hmm. Begin telling your story, but grab that chance cube that you had carefully picked up and roll it, and then continue telling your story based upon the result of that. So as you're going through that part, if you were to choose the scouting ahead option. And the fun part is if you roll it off of camera, you can change the number and nobody can say anything.
Nobody would ever do that, though, right?
I thought you were all planning to learn to become better GMs. Tip from the pro: cheat. That is exactly why GMs have screens.
Not cheating, it's just lying.
It's not lying if you make the story to make it true.
True.
Right, it's story enhancement.
But there's a few options here in the Stormguard Mountains, which
Well, as the upcoming storm, Justice becomes nervous and starts digging through the pack to comfort eat, and notices that all the chocolate bars are starting to run out.
no. What is this? How does Justice deal with this?
Well, Justice becomes very irritable and starts stomping around and just muttering under her breath how everybody eats all the chocolate bars.
All right. Does anybody else have a reaction to how Justice is dealing with the now lack of chocolate?
Justice, you've been carrying them all. They're in your bag.
I get nervous. What am I supposed to do? We should have had more chocolate bars.
I have fruit and nuts.
What kind of nuts? Are they covered in chocolate?
It's not the same.
Piccolo, what does this happens to you in the Stormguard Mountains?
As we pass through the Stormguard Mountains, Piccolo notices a shelter, an overhang from the mountains that allows the group to take shelter from the oncoming storm. And while we do not have chocolate, I do have coffee. And so, starting a fire, making warm coffee for everybody, and telling the tale of the great beast of a faraway land, very vibrant, lots of hand movements to try and boost the morale of the group.
I'm gonna pick on somebody randomly here. Now, what does Fawn think of the story, Piccolo's story?
Fawn is very easily swayed by charismatic people, and so the entrancing way that the story is being told definitely has her feeling much more distracted and less concerned about the weather. She cuddles into her blanket as much as she can to help with the snow.
Fortunately, before the storm gets too bad, a break in the clouds reveals Castle Stormguard. And the hospitality of Alana Storm Queen. Vago, what do you learn at Castle Stormguard?
I learned that while one of our party members is directly related to the Storm Queen, I am on my best behavior. And I learned that even though these jagged, craggy rocks and the icy winds all seem very oppressive, inside Castle Stormguard, it's beautiful. It's very high ceilings. You have fires everywhere. It's very warm and inviting, and the hospitality of Harp's mother is appreciated greatly.
Was that just the hospitality?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's all right. Fawn.
Yes.
What do you find in Castle Stormguard? What do you learn there?
Interestingly enough, kind of similar to what we were talking about with the story, um, at Castle Stormguard, well, others may have been interested in kind of the lore and everything that is happening in the political aspects of the castle. Fawn finds herself entranced with one of the dancers performing at the feast or supper or whatever it is called. Um, and she finds herself just letting the cares kind of melt away as she learns more of the kind of customary dances and such of this area.
Kabu, what do you find here at the Castle Stormguard?
Kabu, enjoying the enchantment, beautiful dancer in the common hall as they feast. He intends to imbibe a little too much of the pleasant mead that slowly warms his skin as he enjoys the company. And before he gets out of hand, his party apologizes to the Storm Queen and has him placed in the stockade to prevent any troubles, and offers a serious apology on making sure that he stays safe and doesn't cause any trouble.
So Kabu himself, themselves asked to be put in the stockades before they cause real trouble from their over drinking.
Yes. Kabu himself is placed in the stockade, not the party.
Yeah. Because I think it would be miss here, Harp. Sarah, I'd like you to pick another one and tell us how Harp's reaction of returning back on this quest, returning home on this while on this other quest.
While it's always good to come home, there's a lot of apprehension and kind of being guarded and careful, knowing that, while it appears that everything is great and welcoming, that could change very quickly and definitely not go in the favor of the goal at hand. So while our dear party member gets put in the stockades for overindulging, I challenge the decision in the Court of Swords. And after a brief tussle and argument with the stockade commander, it is left up to the Storm Queen to decide what to do.
And what is the Storm Queen's decision in this case?
Because it's a production and there are guests around in the form of the party, she puts on the production that she's really struggling with the decision and doesn't want to offend the travelers, but at the end of the day, she's going to keep him in the stockades, and if there were any further objections, then we would be joining.
Okay. And just for reaction's sake, Mike, what does Vago think of the Storm Queen's reaction on this, or decision? Do you agree with do you agree with the decision, or are you in somehow disagreement?
While in disagreement, again being very respectful, the cup of mead and the mouthful of mead empties back into the cup as I sit quiet and try not to ruffle any feathers.
Okay. So, after a night of revelry and the storm is broken, the group is once again gathered with the Magus and proceeds out. There are two ways in front of you that you can go. One way is called the Deep Way. There's a cavern that will lead deep underground that will allow you to travel beneath the sea to the land of Umbra. The other is to go to the port city of Estalia via the ice rail, where you might be able to board a ship, which will take you across the sea. How does the party decide? This is a group decision for everybody about which way to go.
I say we go through Australia and the sea via the rail, way that the fresh ocean air livens our souls and refreshes as we make our journey with the Magus.
There's storms blowing about, and I worry that would be more dangerous. And let's face it, I'm a spoiled heir. I would much prefer easy and warm.
So the railway rather than going down a dank cavern.
I mean, I think I would rather the cavern instead of going out to sea.
Do either of those have chocolate?
Estalia is a big port town, big for trading.
We could probably find chocolate there.
Yeah, it's doubtful that the Undercave would have chocolate in it. Really would be.
Unless there's trolls or goblins.
I don't think you want their kind of chocolate. That sounds gross.
Okay, fine. I'm okay going the way of the ice rail.
While the Deep Way Caverns do interest me, I think that would be a very interesting path. I do trust Kabu's judgment, seeing as how he's from Estalia.
All right, so it sounds like we've reached a consensus to take the ice rail.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of having it not working here. Oh, there it goes. Being a little slow. I believe Justice is next.
So Justice is sitting in the passenger car staring out of the window and notices, let's see, we're on an ice rail. Is that, you said it was a boat, correct?
The ice rail, it's a train.
It's a train.
That's the implication, is that it's a train.
And she just notices the passing landscape of mountains, very rugged, jagged mountains. She can sense and see the danger of those mountains, but at the same time is entranced by the beauty of the ice that reflects like crystals when the sun hits it.
Piccolo.
As the
Which
sound-
car are you in?
I'm not the engine, but that's the one. Just in a passenger car.
But I'm using it as a prompt to ask you to pick a select an option from
Oh,
there.
okay. The engine.
The engine.
Um,
Describe the engine, what's going on there, and then what keeps you going.
so because of the nature of the ice rails, the train has to run a little hot. The engine burns a little hotter than most train engines do. The coal fires keep it going, no longer able to run on magic. And as the clacks of the rails and the train rhythmically go, Piccolo reflects on what does keep her going. And it is these moments, it is these travels, the stories that she can tell, and being able to tell them in a fire that she can make bright and that she can change colors with that she used to before magic fell.
Vaga, what car are you in?
Vago is in the dining car, and not really having much time to have spoken with the Magus before. He thinks that this is a excellent time to have an honest conversation with the Magus. He's going to ask, what was it like when there was magic? As he doesn't, Vago doesn't really remember a time when there was any magic in the world.
Magic is like breathing, says the Magus. Magic is like seeing the sunrise. And now we're in the ink of we're in the grip of twilight. How can you describe such a sensation, a reality to somebody who doesn't know what it is?
Vago thinks on this, and it might be a bit over his head, but he's going to try and keep up in the conversation and say, I hope to one day know what it's like to breathe then. Thank you for your wise words.
And thank you for accompanying me on this journey. I know it has been perilous, braving storms, and I'm afraid it may get more so.
Well, they say that we've all been picked for a reason. I don't know what mine is yet, but I hope to know soon.
Okay. In an all too brief moment, the train heads on to Estalia, shining jewel on the sea. It is a large port town of various and a trading hub. Fawn, you're the first off of the train. Is there a district that you wish to go and see?
Because I don't come from a super big place, and this seems to be a kind of hefty, not hefty, but a bustling town. I'm going to head right to the Gilded District to kind of look at all of the stuff that literally I can't get at home. I'm really bad for that. So I'm going to look through and see what kind of treasures there are, and if maybe there's something that I can't afford. But
describe the Gilded District. What is going on there?
It's packed with stalls and little huts, near a fairly narrow, not narrow, I guess, but packed alleyway or market way or whatever. And then just full of merchants kind of yelling out at people, kind of trying to entice them over to talk about their wares that they're selling. You can see that some of the vendors don't feel that that's necessary, that their goods will speak for themselves because they kind of are standing back, less vocal. And yet there still seems to be people crowding their stalls either way. And it varies from everything from like jewelry to scarves to clothes to whatever you can find as there. She does find an item of clothing that she feels would be amazing, especially like that is such well-made clothing. But it is way out of her price range, and you know, she feels like it would have been something that would have been great to actually help her get through her days working as a midwife, but
So
it is not to be.
What does Fawn do about that?
Um, she's pretty easygoing, so she's not going to cry about it or anything. It's kind of like oh, well, that's too bad, but maybe I'll have to save up my money. She gets the name of the merchant, and thinks about, seeing if she can find somebody who maybe knows of their work when she gets home that she can like commission a piece, that kind of thing. But she does take down like kind of the details of the item so she can hopefully have it replicated.
Thanks. All right, Kabu. As of somebody who is from Estalia, where do you head?
Kabu decides to go see his mentors and peers at the Starfall Academy. Before he left, there was an item that was considered precious to the guild, and he wanted to find out how to fix what was broken. Is there something that he hasn't been able to read and see in the scrolls as they go along with the magus? Is this something that caused the magus magic to disappear? Is this something of a cycle? And so he decides to go to talk with his peers to see if he can find more information that would help them along on their journey.
What was broken, and how are you fixing it?
There was an amulet that was held 4 specific gemstones, each corresponding with a specific direction. Red being the north, a deep red ruby. The east, a shining white diamond that led people to the east, far lands. To the south was a green emerald, and then to the west was a blue sapphire. And at times, it was a great magical item that was used in a previous battle. And due to the overpowering use of the magic, it caused it to shatter and broke into 4 different pieces.
And how are you fixing it, or how do you feel that you fix it?
That's what I was going to talk with my peers, is trying to figure out, is there a certain time where all the pieces have to be placed at a certain location to allow the magic to reheal itself?
So are you bringing this broken amulet with you to Umbra?
Yes, I am taking this amulet with me to Umbra.
Okay. Harp, have you been in Estelia before? And if so, which district do you head to?
I have been. And I head to the marketplace of magic. And now remind me, what does the leaf mean?
The leaf means a change. So if you have picked up if you pick up an adjective from earlier, you will lose that adjective when that leaf comes up. But this would also be a way that you could gain an adjective if you did not already have one. Something appropriate, as it might be. Or you might lose the adjective you start with, air.
So when I go into the marketplace, there's the presence of magic, but it's still unrecognizable. And what I see is, kind of like this dimly lit alleyway, with a few ruffians, scruffians, old tattered clothing with, sitting there with a blanket spread out with all sorts of trinkets. So I'd approach one, and inquire about, what each trinket means, and what they do. And the one that catches my eye is one that, what the beggar says is that for a price, and the price is never known, that I can look through this trinket and find answers. So I jump on the opportunity and say that I'll take it, and in the process, kind of this wisp and woo goes about, and I no longer recognize who I am and where I belong. I recognize my party members and that we're on a mission, but kind of my history and where I came from is unclear.
So from a mechanic standpoint, the adjective you're losing is from Stormguard.
Yeah. Which then would be also the air.
Maybe. That's for you to decide. Ooh, that's so good. Justice, what district do you head to?
So Justice meanders around the Badwater district. And unbeknownst to her, she hears a party of people arguing about an amulet that was broken. And they were arguing, some were upset that the amulet was broken, and others were happy that it was broken. The majority of the people did not like magic, did not trust magic. And so she kind of blended back into the shadows just to listen. Being an apprentice of Ravenhall, she didn't want to stir any trouble or cause anything, but she wanted to get as much information as possible. And so what she learned is the people of the Badwater district thought that magic was the problem, or was the cause of all their problems before that amulet was destroyed. Once the battle occurred and the amulet was destroyed, they began to prosper. And so she started walking back and took that information to her party.
Does that change how Justice thinks on magic? Does that change Justice's opinions?
It does, because in the beginning, Justice was all about magic. And with the mage dying, she's starting to realize that everything comes to an end. And so it just made her question even more her purpose. And is she even on the right path?
After resting in Estelia, the Magus says that they have booked passage on a ship known as the Sea Wing, captained by Grandmother Black. Piccolo, as a Raven, have you where can they find you aboard the Sea Wing?
I will be in the galley. Having traveled as far from home as we have been very careful not to disturb Justice's chocolate stash. And since stopping in Estelia, we have restocked upon it. Hopefully, she was smart enough to restock upon it. But the rest of us have been eating a steady supply of hearty meals, things that people brought from home as comforts, and whatever we can to afford to restock. Currently, we are eating a steady diet of snacks, nuts, berries, not chocolate. Raven herself, or Piccolo herself, has been on a steady diet of coffee and whatever trail mix she can afford.
Are you describing the character or yourself?
I meant to say Piccolo, not Raven. That's my bad.
No, I know. Just
oops.
No. I was just asking if a steady diet of coffee and trail mix was your character or you.
Me, both.
All right. Vago, where can you be found on the ship?
I'll be in the cabin of the ship, and as the waves sort of push the ships back and forth, the first time I've ever been on a ship, so it's a bit uncomfortable at first. I have no proper sea legs, and while I sit there, I can sort of breathe in the smell of the ocean air. I can hear above people walking around, and this sort of pattern of over and over, this sort of crashing, coming above the waves, crashing down. It's rhythmic. It's almost like breathing, which reminds him of the conversation that he had with the Magus earlier. And for just a brief moment, he sort of locks in to this idea of magic and what it actually might mean. Not just these special abilities, but sort of just living, and how there's beauty in places you might not expect.
Fawn, where are you found on the ship?
Unmute, important. I go up to the helm to see who's kind of steering.
Who is steering?
The captain, for now at least.
Okay.
And I strike up a conversation with, and it's Grandmother Black is the captain, correct?
That's correct.
Yes. So I strike up a conversation with her if she's open to it, as this is the first time I've ever been on a ship, so it's very awe-inspiring and amazing. So I just pester her with as many questions as I can manage before she gets mad and tells me to go away.
She tells you a variety of tales while turning the wheel in a way that looks effortless. She says that she's had many lovers, many husbands, but the sea has been her paramour for as long as she can remember, and that she remembers a time when she was when she first spotted the sea and how it moved and it called, and thought that that might be her, that she knew that was going to be where she was and what her life was. And you can see as she's telling this, her eyes are bright, but it's surrounded by a scarred and weathered face, not dissimilar from old leather.
A hard life.
The journey continues, and before long, you find yourself out at sea, and the weather, the winds have died down, and the ship has caught the calm. Now, if we were playing this in person, these are called the Lost Islands that you're going by, and they're actually a deck of cards that you should randomly turn up as you go through. Kabu, you've got additional time on the ship. Where do you go?
Kabu goes up to the crow's nest and just to admire the horizon, feel the movement of the ocean, looking at the sun as it slowly goes below the horizon. And it appears that an unwelcome guest lands in the crow's nest, and it's a crow.
What does this crow tell you as it makes eye contact?
The crow gives a warning and says, careful what you ask for as you go into this journey to Umbra and wanting to repair the amulet to try to return magic. Maybe you should heed some of the thoughts of your party on their second thoughts of the magic that they're trying to fix.
Now, you run into another raven, Piccolo. Do you tell them what you saw and what you what was told? As you're presuming you're climbing down and Piccolo's there. Britton, I just tossed you under the bus. Be prepared.
So Piccolo, I had an unwelcome companion when I was up in the crow's nest. It was peaceful and calm, and a raven landed. And I don't know if I need to trust the words. Are they trying to play a trick on us about how we should have second thoughts of trying to fix the amulet and try to restore its magic?
When it comes to ravens, not everything they say should be taken at face value. Sometimes it should be taken with a grain of salt. Sometimes it's a riddle for you to figure out. It sounds like it was a message for you, and I don't know what amulet it is speaking of. I was not with you, Anastasia.
Harp, where do you find yourself on the ship during this windless fortnight?
I find myself in at the bow. And trying to take my little trinket and look through it to see, if the answers are on the horizon or even really what the question is. Just trying to see what what that's all about. And in the process, the crew gets a little skittish and upset with the fact that there's a woman on the bow that apparently brings bad luck to the ship, to the captain, to the journey, and they very hastily and rudely tell me to get out of there.
All right. What's your reaction to that?
Offended.
Justice Justice is also there. Justice, what is your reaction to this manhandling of Harp?
Justice is offended and starts arguing with the crew that Harp has every right to be on the bow and the superstition is stupid.
Harp, it's just still your scene if you've got more to say. Sarah.
While I want to fight and, stand up for my rights to be on the bow, I recognize that we're kind of at the mercy of all of them, and that I will, as offended as I am, I will respect their superstitions, as ridiculous as they are, and I will go somewhere else.
All right. Justice, where do you find yourself during this calm?
So Justice goes back to the galley for some comfort eating and notices there are crew members that are there just sitting, drinking water, and she just conversation asks them what they're doing and chatting, and she learns that they are on very small rations and they go hungry. Being in Australia, she did stock up on chocolate, and in a rare form of kindness, she decides to share with them. But then it takes her back and she reflects on the conversation she heard in Australia in the Badwater district of how other people are suffering. And so she questions them more on why they have to ration. And she just wonders where all the money is going, where all the food is going. And since they're travelers, she asks them.
And did you get a particular response, or do you want somebody to?
I haven't made it that far yet.
All right.
Help.
Somebody want to jump in as a crew member? Where are the rations? Where are the things going? Sarah is the next person for me to pick on. So Sarah?
So am I deciding where they're going, or?
Yeah, just take on the role of the crew member in the scene. Tell them where these rations, where the.
So because of the fear of the bad luck, because of the women on the bow, the rations are going into the sea. They're making their sacrifice to hopefully undo what was done. And in the process, they all have to be a little bit more hungry and fight a little bit more scurvy.
It is probably coincidence, but the crew doesn't seem to think so, that after their sacrifice, the winds have picked up and they are thankfully carried to Heron Island, where where the birds dance. The crew goes ashore, take restock on supplies, water and whatnot, and the crew and the assembled party has been turned out as well to explore the island a bit, stretch their legs. Piccolo, where do you go on the island?
I go to the rookery.
Describe it for me.
It is where you see most of the birds who have chosen a mate, and the ground is littered with these shiny looking pebbles, acts of love and acts of affection from one partner to the other in these bird groupings. And as the sun comes through the small cave that is the rookery, it lights the ground up like starlight. And Piccolo, being unable to help herself, is very distracted by the starlight on the ground and picks up one of the rocks, and it reminds her of the gifts of love given to couples and partners in her own hometown, and puts it in her pocket to take home with her after the travels.
Vago, where do you go on the island?
Being able to stretch his legs and get off of that weird moving contraption that they've all been on, he finds some familiar space in these tall trees, the green grass that sort of is growing on parts of the island. And for a moment, he sort of forgets where he is and starts to rush upwards towards the hill, just running through the trees, sort of getting that familiar feeling. It's invigorating, and before he knows it, he sees that the landscape just cuts off, and he stops before he falls off the cliff of this jagged mountainside. And as he gets to this edge, he's sort of pushed closer, looking over the edge, looking down, seeing these swooping birds flying high above and sort of just out into as far as his eyes can see. And it's another sort of sight of this natural magic that just around the world. It's something that he doesn't really see much of back home. And now having this adventure with everyone, he's sort of letting go and starting to believe a little bit in this idea of magic and not its most identifiable form.
In all too brief, on Heron Island, the ship is restocked and sets sail once more, heading south. The air gets colder, and and before long, another island is in view, covered in snow and mostly of ice. The crew weighs anchor and goes ashore, as is custom, also to get more fresh water. At this point, Fawn finds herself also on the exploratory party, but free to go out. Where does Fawn go?
It's a good question. I was worried you were going to call on me. This one I'm struggling with. I'm looking at it and I'm just like, I'm not 100% sure where to go with this.
How about you start with pick one of the locations and describe it?
Okay, let's go with the ice cave. So we go in, well, I go into the ice cave, and it's not like it's a deep cave, but it's not something that is never ending or anything. It is fairly tall, wide, and you can see the ice, almost like stalactites, but made of ice, coming from the ceiling. It's inciting a fear of them falling on her, so she's very careful to not stand directly under any of them. And she kind of wanders through the cave looking, but never too far from the entrance. She always wants to be able to make a dash towards it if something happens, I guess.
There's something here. There is a stone tablet in half embedded in the ice with an inscription on it. And there is the frozen remains of somebody also half buried in the ice near the stone tablet, clutching a piece of metal.
And if I get closer to it, can I read the inscription? Is it in something, a language I can read?
It's your story. I'm just helping
yeah. This one's really difficult. I'm going to say it's not something that it's in a language that I don't recognize. However, I don't have any tools. It's not something that I brought. However, how embedded in this ice? I'm asking you questions I need to answer.
Yeah.
I'm going to attempt to pull or take the tablet away from the ice, unembedded, I guess, without breaking the tablet, and kind of seeing if I can get the metal free without damaging anything. Fawn doesn't have any fear of the dead or any fear of ghosts or any spirits or anything like that. So, but she does have an insatiable curiosity, and since she doesn't understand what's on the tablet, she wants to bring it back to her teammates, and hopefully somebody else can read it for her. Okay. And maybe it'll even give us an idea as to what's going on with the magic.
There you go. See, that wasn't so hard. Kabu. Actually, let me finish up here with Mel's because Kabu is the next one I would call on anyway. Fawn comes back with a tablet with unusual inscriptions and a bit of metal that looks like it serves a related purpose. What does Kabu know about this?
Kabu takes the piece of metal, looks at it carefully, sees the language on it, but can't really tell. It's ineligible. It's hard to read, but it's still the shine on it, for what she explained. She had found it, in a cave that you think it would be encrusted in salt, to the ocean, or possibly rusted. He goes back and digs through his bag and tries to find a scroll, see if he could find a story or a tale, something that might have been written that would have been carried over here. Was there a lost ship that was carrying something precious to the other lands, back to Ravenhall or Stormguard? Where would it be? Where was it going? But he can't find anything. He's still kind of puzzled.
Bill, do you want to consider that to be your pick, or do you have something else in the ice flow that you would like to select?
I can continue with that.
Okay.
So looking through the scrolls, he does find a brief mention of a ship on this particular island. And as they proceed, he finds some coordinates And it's the latitude and longitude of the last known whereabouts of that ship. And transversing through it, he comes across a frozen wreck. And looking at it, the sails are torn, the mast is shattered, the hull is crushed, and it's like a skeleton sitting on a lonely, unwanted beach. As he goes through, he begins to carefully climb up onto the ship, trying to figure out, is there anything, maybe the captain's logs, or maybe there's something that has been saved that kept in a special place where they couldn't find. And so what he finds preserved in the captain's cabin in a small chest was the translation to the piece of metal. It was written something similar to the same language, but then written in common language. So he thinks that maybe this is something that would help translate the language that was found on the piece of metal in the cave. So Kabu heads back to the party to show them what he's found, and maybe they can help solve the thing at hand.
Back aboard the Sea Wing, the ship sets sail again, heading into the east. And after several more nights at distant sea, you find yourselves seeing the shores of Umbra. And the ship sails into a bay and lands outside the ruins of Crow Hall. The Magus says, "This was once the land that I grew up on. This is where I hail." And this is and it is eerie because this is much like Ravenhall. The builds are the same, the buildings, the streets, everything is the same, but old and destroyed. Harp, what do you find here?
I will go to the bridge. And with the information from the found piece of metal, the amulet that was discussed, and my little magical trinket, I'm gonna ask Magus if there is anything that ties these things together. And all the while kind of leery of what he has to say, not knowing the motive for sure.
The Magus tells you that all of these pieces are part of a whole, that it is a description of a thing rather than the thing itself. Like how paintings of the same mountain might look different because they're from different angles. The Magus says that a lot of artifacts of magic, a lot of trinkets and baubles created to engage magic, with magic fading, them too have started to break. And the translation of the of the tablet of metal found in ice is just a way for the is a way to try to cling on to what is slipping away, like holding on to seawater in your hands. You get an impression also from the Magus at this point. You get the Magus has not looked so old. When you began this journey, the Magus, sure, was ancient and old and wizened and all that, but now leans heavily on the staff, is racked with a cough, seems diminished and frail. What, because I know I didn't actually describe it, but what were you told? What was Harp told at the beginning of this that you were going to go do? Why are you escorting the Magus back to Umbra?
Well, because of my the price I paid for the trinket, the details are fuzzy, but I know it is to hopefully restore or repair something with magic or damage that was done to or from magic.
Okay. And I'm actually not going to even ask the question or have you answer the question whether or not you believe that to be the case still. I will move on to Justice.
So just to make sure I understand, you want me to pick a place, or do you want me to?
We're in the
continue?
ruins of Crow Hall at the bottom.
Okay. So so she walks through the sculpture gardens. And what are so I just choose one of those three?
You will choose one of those and they will become an adjective for your character.
Okay. And Justice becomes obsessed with trying to balance magic with what the people need, as she reflected on Harp's respect for the crew of the ship, what the arguments of the people of the Badwater district, thinking about how her actions affected the rations on the ship, and then what she knew when she first started this journey. What she realized is there was so much more going on around her that she had no idea. When she started this journey, she looked at her reflection in the mirror and tried to figure out her purpose. And what she realized with this journey was that she was just looking at herself. What was her purpose? What did she want to do? How can she hoard the chocolate? And what she didn't realize is that it needs to be all encompassing. And so she became obsessed with trying to figure out how she can use magic as an apprentice to bring people together.
Piccolo, where do you go in the ruins of Crow Hall?
I have a quick question. Can two characters choose the same location?
Yeah, if you've got something awesome, go for it. Who am I to say no? But typically you don't, but go for it.
Piccolo is also walking the sculpture gardens. And feels very lonely. Yeah, there's beautiful statues in the decrepit city that match the walls falling apart. But there are also some statues that seem out of place, a little more like actual people. a little more like people turned to statues, turned to stone. And one particular catches her eye, what looks to be like a young woman reaching her hand out, face just with a warm smile, reaching out to what looks to be like a statue of a small child. As she takes the stone that she collected back on the island of Dancing Birds and places it in the hand of the mother. She starts to question the Magus's true nature. Why is this something so macabre in the halls of Crow Hall, in the ruins of Crow Hall?
All right. After fitful nights of rest, the party sets out once more, climbing the distant hill and into a far valley overgrown with all manner of plants. And what you think is a sunrise, you realize is not. Over the next hill is something that looks like a sunrise. It is an area known as the Glow. And it is, this is where your journey is going to take you. But there's just a short ways to go. Vago, what choose one of the remaining.
Okay. I'll go with touching. And the reason that all of us were chosen is still not exactly clear to Vago. Vago has always considered himself to be strong and capable, but his skills really haven't been used this far, so he's still not understanding why he specifically was chosen, why he was brought along and sort of taken from his home, asked to do this great quest. And as he's watched all of these new friends he's made along the Jersey journey change and figure things out, he's feeling like he hasn't caught up to the development that everyone else seems have made, and is wondering when he's going to sort of understand what it is that he's doing here. And just as this beautiful glow is overtaking the sort of landscape with all the lush green, it's beautiful and touching, but he just is trying to figure out exactly what it is that he was meant to do here. He sort of sees that there are bits and pieces from everyone that are starting to connect, but he does not understand his part yet.
So why is Vago here? Why does Vago serve the Magus in this regard?
He serves out of sort of this sense of duty and honor that he was asked by someone at this point he can't even remember, but the reason why he is serving the Magus is just out of duty for right now. He's trying to understand exactly what it is that's going to happen.
Now, when you choose one that has a leaf on it, it's a sign of change. Typically, you lose an adjective.
Okay.
What adjective do you think Vago loses at this point? Typically,
Uh,
like you've got giant and apparently mistwood. Is Vago no longer the huge individual? Like obviously he's still 7 feet
does,
tall, but
yeah, he does feel a little bit of loss of purpose, and sort of this thing he identified with of this size and strength hasn't served him yet. So he's sort of lost that bit of identity and this sense of purpose that he's looking for.
Fawn, there's 2 options left here at the glow. Actually, Mel, if you and Bill want to discuss, because one's going to get one, the other's going to get the other one.
Mel stepped away just for a sec.
Okay. Well, then Bill can jump up.
As I come out across the glow, I see he hears voices echoing through the land. And those voices sound eerie, almost as if they were the last conversations of those statues that we had seen in the garden. And as the voices get louder, my face begins to become surprised to thinking that maybe they have been used by the Magus to get to where he needs. Maybe he was the one that caused the statues. And the face being of surprise, hurt, questioning if he really is supposed to be where he's at. Is this the right purpose? Is this journey something that should be written and shared so that no others can be tricked by another Magus if they were to arise and take him again? I don't know.
Normally, with Leaf, you lose an adjective. Do you still consider yourself to be a scholar? Have you questioned your knowledge, or is there another adjective that you feel that no longer is applicable?
He loses that thing of a scholar. Maybe he becomes a philosopher, but as a scholar, it's writing the truth. But whose truth am I going to be writing about? Is it my truth? Is the Magus truth? Is anything we see true? And so at that point, then he walks away from being a scholar.
Right. Mel, are you back? I suppose I can peek.
I am, yeah.
All right. Tell us about how almost and the last time you saw real magic. Or Fawn.
Yeah. It's so long ago that it's a very faded memory. It's been a very long time. Like she was a child the last time she saw real magic, and not the the tricksters that come through the towns and stuff with the cards and such. Snake oil sellers. She remembers not much, but an older person, a gentleman, she thinks, coming through the town with what was known as just some. Now she remembers it as being like just basic healing magic, but in a child's eyes, it was miracles, right? Small cuts closing, hearts being healed, that kind of thing. But like I said, she realizes that over time, it was probably made grander in her mind. But healing magic is the last thing that she remembers.
As you get closer to the glow, the Magus stumbles many times. You need to help them up. You almost carry them. They're frail, like a dried leaf, waiting to be blown away. And the last moment, the magus pushes you back and reserves the last bit of strength and stumbles into the glow, which is this indescribable light. The color is not one that you can even pinpoint. And as the magus crosses into the threshold, there is a thunderclap and clouds grow. And then the light fades. Thank you for playing.
Poor guy.
So there are comments to reflect on, but I need to take a quick break. So we'll be back here in 3 minutes. Okay. So one important part about this game is to have a reflect, make a space for casual conversation and reflection, and talk about stuff that you've learned as you came along on this journey. What is a moment that you particularly enjoyed as you came through. And if you want, I can call on somebody, or somebody can just shout something out.
The end with the glow, and how it. I mean, I didn't like how abruptly it ended, because we were all just kind of sitting here like, did we break something? Did we mess it up? What did we do wrong? But leading up,
We broke the magus.
Right.
but leading up to that, like that whole section of the glow, I thought was really awesome.
Yeah.
It kind of tied everything together, but didn't answer all of the unanswered questions. It just kind of left it is what it is.
Does somebody have something that surprised them during this? Something that they weren't expecting, maybe from themselves, maybe from somebody else.
I didn't think until, and I thought it was very clever, that the magus could have caused all of this. I thought that was a really nice touch. I was like, oh, where is this going? And then it ended.
If you were to play this again, what might you do differently?
I would figure out if I need to speak in first person or third person.
They both work.
It was fun where you can really let your imagination go, and maybe have that conversation where we're discussing the amulet and the piece of metal, expanding on those conversations.
My one regret is that amulet piece of metal came in basically at the very end, and that we didn't have it occur earlier. I think that could have been that could have been an interesting plot to carry through the whole story. Does anybody have a desire to describe an epilogue for their character? What happens after this journey? Now, I left us on a big question. The light goes out, but is that the actual end of magic entirely? Or is that just the beginning of the is that just the beginning? Is that the new start, or where are we, or is that everything?
Well, for Justice, it was the beginning, and a new start, because then she reflected, and the last time she saw magic was throughout this entire journey, with everybody working together and having a difference of opinion and being respectful and understanding that one person's beliefs doesn't have to be another person's beliefs, and there's no right or wrong. It just is. So that's what she learned.
So magic in a different form.
Yeah. And because my brain has just totally, have we not heard from anybody at post fact? I want to hear them have an appreciation for somebody else. I don't know. Is it Mel? Have we heard from Mel in this asking questions around?
Not yet, no.
Is there appreciation of somebody else, another player at this table that you wanted to air? Just, this is all part of this game to wrap up, to talk about these things.
To be completely honest, I was really a big fan of the both Sarah and Britton, and kind of where they took the story in places that my brain never would have even kind of gone. So to see that kind of thing go through and to watch where it evolved from there was really cool to see.
And I had a question for a producer. Do we want to have the discussion? We're ended basically early. Do we want to have the discussion on camera or off?
Let's go and have the discussion on camera, but I actually wanted to chip in, and I mentioned this to them while they were away, that from even though I had my head down and listening, I found it where I saw it going is that this was all cyclical, that they would become their world would become the new stone statues, and a new Magus would be born, and then the next group's journey would come to their world, since there were such similarities between the two holds.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's go ahead and have the discussion. As a round table, I wanted to bring up what, as therapists and mental health specialists, do you feel would be teachable moments within this game? What do you feel this could benefit your clients?
I think this would help with kind of confidence building. It is so different from D&D, with usually the quest is guided, and this one it was choose your own adventure, but we were all on a different page, but we had to make it work. So the confidence building, the trust, the team building, I could see this being a great tool, and especially with how popular D&D is, it'd be a nice little curveball to have everyone on the same page, whereas with D&D you have people who've been playing forever, some who haven't, some who have dabbled a little bit. Even if people have played it, the story is never the same.
I have to agree. That's what I like about it too, is that it's so unique per time. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how different this is on Saturday's cohort. And I appreciate what it can be done. And also, to me, I can see it being used not only for the confidence building, but in regards to even creative thinking. And instead of doing creative writing exercises, do this as a way to get that creative thought process going. Get a little bit more of that creative side of the brain stimulated.
I will mention a couple things about this system. First off, this system is great role-playing practice in general. Playing this makes you a better player and makes you a better GM just by going through it, because it is a lot of make up a story with limited information here, but also it brings in a lot of those other aspects that we play in role-playing games, the team building and the can I tell the story, can I move the plot forward without being like, well, I've got the biggest numbers, so I'm going to make that happen. And I will also mention that things like the descriptions of the scenes, what the Magus is doing, whether or not magic will be restored at the end, or if it's ending, or what's going on there, none of that was included. Like that was me filling in some blanks to help keep the story going. So
I think in this case, you could use this based off ACT, the acceptance commitment therapy, where the committed action is that journey, and that the value, that's going to be that final goal, that the glow. What is the glow? What's the value? Where is they going? And staying in that present moment of thinking about what is there around you to continue to grow the story. Is it something to where you want to talk about in the past? You can't change. The future you can plan for, but as you're in that present moment, you're finding that amulet, you're finding that piece. What is that going to take you? Is that going to take you to your final goal and your value, or is it going to distract you and take you down a different path? Like we come to the part about where we would either go through the deep way or through the sea. Which way? Both of you are going to get to that same value, but which path do you want to take? And so staying in that present moment and thinking about your thoughts and your actions can get you to that and complete your goal.
We actually have a comment from the chat from one Adrian DeLeon saying, putting abilities to the forefront among player agency to feed the DM some plot hooks. Which is very true. I have to agree with that.
I also really liked seeing it from more of a narrative therapy kind of perspective.
Mm-hmm.
the shifting perspectives, whenever the Raven flew down and gave the warning to Bill, and Bill going, hey, so I got this really awful warning, and my character going, it might not be, who knows? That perspective shift and that redefining the narrative a little bit.
And that is actually, the perspective shift is critical, and is actually one of the things that I didn't actually realize until playing this through. Like, I remembered it, my brain deep in the past, but like, it's very specific that whenever you're telling a thing, you're telling it from your perspective. So you're actually getting everybody's perspective. In D&D, in a GM-driven game, you're typically getting everything from the GM's perspective, or whatever perspective, wherever the GM as a director has put the camera, so to speak. But you don't get so much of stuff from your perspective or the other character's perspective. So that makes this fantastic.
Plus, I really liked the little vague, not vague, maybe vague's the wrong word, but the the menagerie in the ruins of Cohort, a nightmare given form. That's up to you and your character and whatever that is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as I mentioned in the pregame, it's like, what is a crab singer? I don't know. You tell me, right? Raven, is that like a class like ranger, or is that an actual bird? You might have been an actual bird for the whole game. In this one, it was pretty clear that you were like something like a ranger, but that's a question.
Yeah.
And how does that work out?
I think also being able to decide how much of yourself you put in a character. I think that was really interesting. Is your character going to be a little more like you, or are you going to take a step back and make it maybe an idealistic version of you? Maybe not like you at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the exploration, and then also the act component. Trying to figure out your characters, or even your own personal morals and beliefs and values, and exploring that. Sometimes with strangers, it's a great way to test the waters. Children do it every day, but we forget to do it as adults because, there's a certain way that we have to be, and there's a certain way that we're taught. So it was really nice to be able to try certain things. Like when you walked away, I was telling everybody I'm allergic to chocolate, but it was really cool to throw this chocolate, thing in there. Like, it's mine. I want this. And that's something that you can explore. And then it also had components of reality theory in there, which was really cool. There was a lot of freedom and power and fun and safety that you can touch on. So I thought it was really, really cool.
I could see this being good, especially with the glow and the talk of Twilight, as a way of indirectly addressing a loss. Having that peaceful passing on, that last journey, that this could be a good way to help someone face that.
Or even being the start of a new journey. This is where you're at in recovery and your journey, but now you're not able to become that old person that you want to be. But that glow isn't a sunset. Maybe it's a sunrise. It's a glowing of, here's your new journey. Here's your new path. This is the new you, and all the lessons that you've gained throughout that.
As I mentioned, awesome. There's nothing in the rules that say anything about it. It just says that you're escorting the Magus. What if the Magus is already dead? I mean, this it implies the Magus is dying, but what if the Magus is already dead and you're actually you're carrying a body? Maybe in a literal sense of to carry on. So.
That makes me think of the most recent God of War, with taking the mother's ashes up to the mountain. It's that journey of self-discovery and finding your true path. I like that, and that ties in with what Bill was saying, that this is not only can be used as a coming of age parable, but also that moving on to that next saga in your life. Once one saga ends, a new one begins.
And it doesn't even have to be related to like another person. I think grief is something people go through in different ways. Like Bill was saying, you know, you can't go back to that person anymore. You can't be who you were anymore. Instead, you have to move forward. You have to walk forward. And there's grief that comes with that.
A lot of us are experiencing that now with COVID and the adjustments that we all have to make.
This has been a great one. And Mike, I gotta applaud you for bringing another really touching and awesome game to us. It was a completely different change of pace because I'm used to seeing you run Alien and everything. This is so heartfelt and so emotional that it is up to each one of you, the players, to find the meaning in this campaign beyond what our DM gives you as prompts. And as an observer and listener, it's really nice. It would make, in its own way, a unique improv drama, like a radio drama, to see how different casts take it. Because that's what it's teaching you a little bit, is how to improv on the spot and take these little prompts that you have for the game to a conclusion that is personal to you. But it is about that time. It's about 10:52. We actually, with this discussion, which I like this works well with ending about a half hour early because this game is so deep to get into this type of discussion. And we'll call it here for the night. Thank you, Mike, for DMing for us tonight. Cohort 21, thank you so much for facilitating such an amazing narrative and bringing us all on your journey tonight. Have a good night, everybody, and we'll see you guys a little later this week with our next Cohort stream. And I, Cornell Critz, stream throughout the week on Geek Therapeutics with Let's Plays. So we'll see you then. Take care.